Thank you, Paul. This works. Not too echoey, not too loud. How's everybody? Thank you all for coming. It's so wonderful to see familiar faces that now have spanned across many kind of generations in the time I've been here. So it's been wonderful to see folks, and looking forward to catching up with many of you. I'm going to tell you in the next 10, 15 minutes about a project that we've been working on. And when I say we, oh, thank you. In the lower left-hand corner is a group of people inside the Institute which got together to work on an oral history project that was funded with money from the Triad Foundation through an internal competition. And so some of you you'll recognize already Paula at the top. AJ is here in the audience, Aaron, communications director, and many others that are listed there, met quite frequently to put together a program that the goal was to try to capture firsthand accounts of BTI science and administration and strategy and social aspects, to try to capture those kind of firsthand accounts. And these were the people that very generously gave of their time and experience who were interviewed as part of this project. And this timeline that Paula put together kind of shows you kind of the expanse of time and experience that these interviewees brought, and a little bit about their roles. The 10 interviews were on the order of about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and we put together transcripts. But the real we here, I talked about the internal folks, but there's a team of two people with whom this wouldn't have happened. Agnes, who's here with us on the front, Agnes DeMark, who's a researcher, doing strategic studies in nuclear disarmament, but she's also an oral historian and was able to take her expertise and learn about the Institute. I mean, she did a deep dive. We had a lot of fun talking about BTI history over really the course of, I think, a year and a half that we worked on this project together. And Agnes worked with her partner, Christopher Knight, who is a videographer, and to do these interviews. So I think that if I'm correct, and I'm sorry, I should have hit the button. There's Agnes's associations. But I think the next thing up, and I'm looking to the back of the room, we're going to play about, I think, a 6.5-minute edit of what essentially is 10 hours of oral histories. And so we're just trying to capture a little flavor of those discussions. And after that, I want to say a few things about history and archives, and then Paul Comet will address us at the very end and bring us to the next stage. Okay, so am I okay, guys? I'm looking up at you. Can I go on?
I'm Agnieszka Niemark, and this is the Boyce Thompson Institute Centennial Oral History Project. My interviewee today is Ben Williams, Alan Renwick, Bob Kohut, Claire Castile, Daniel Klesik, John Dentis, Laura Phillips, Luke Colavito, Robert Last, Zohara Yaniv Bahrach. Thank you so much for taking part in this project.
Alan Renwick discusses the social life at the Institute during the 1960s and 1970s when BTI was located in Yonkers.
We had a volleyball court outside the Institute, so we played there at lunchtime. Some of us went on ski trips. We went to the World's Fair in New York in 1964, I think that was. I got to know people And some of these people became my best friends and still are, in fact.
Luke Colavito talks about the housing situation when BTI was located in Yonkers.
I was only like about a 10-minute walk from the Institute, and I would cut across the grounds of the golf course, and it had snowed. And I really didn't know my way too well. And I fell in a sand trap up to my waist in snow. I thought, this is a funny place to die.
Ben Williams explains the public relations aspect of his position and how he tried to raise the profile of the Institute and help integrate it into the local community.
We did that through working with the Cornell News Bureau, where we would have press releases about major scientific developments that took place at Boyce Thompson. And the other part of it was bringing Boyce Thompson into not only the Cornell community, but also the Ithaca community, and making it a vital part of the overall community picture.
Zohara Yaniv Bakrak discusses studying protein synthesis of the uridospore of bean rust with Dick Staples.
And we did find that it's a different protein synthesis and a different DNA synthesis, and we were able to isolate few key enzymes and to show the dependency of this parasite and how the surface of the leaf triggers the germination of the spore, and so that the spore, which is like the seed of the rust fungus, the spore can germinate and can begin its penetration into the leaf, and therefore the whole biochemistry is aimed to be successful on this process.
John Dentes recounts how the close relationship between managing director Roy Young and eventual board member Roy Park Sr. helped mobilize members in the local business community, along with Dean Charles Palm at Cornell, to lobby officials in the New York State government to facilitate BTI's move to the Cornell campus rather than to Oregon State University.
We're instrumental in flying to Albany on a very snowy winter evening to convince Governor Malcolm Wilson of the desirability of keeping Boyce Thompson in New York State, not moving to Oregon, and building a building and enticing us to stay, enticing Boyce Thompson to stay.
Rob Last discusses synergies between the Institute's traditional strength in environmental biology and his new lab studying plant molecular biology in the early 1990s.
For example, Bob Amundsen, who was a staff scientist, I guess, or a faculty member at the time in environmental biology, and his group with Rich Raba, and my group established a collaboration really quite informally, which led to some really, some of my most highly cited papers.
Claire Castile, a postdoctoral researcher in the Jander Lab from 2010 to 2014, responds to a question about what aspect of her training at BTI she considered the most important.
In George's lab, it was the first time I really felt like an equal as a scientist, and like I deserve this place at the table. He respected me and made me feel like my opinions mattered.
Dan Klessig talks about the challenges he faced as a new president of the Institute.
The physical plant was quite good in many regards, but in some regards was not appropriate for some of the research. Research programs were now larger. Laboratories were little 2 or 3 man modules. We made them much larger so it could accommodate larger research groups. We increased the number of cold rooms and common equipment for doing biochemistry and molecular biology. And then we made a massive change in the growth chambers.
Laura Phillips talks about the creation of the Scientific Advisory Board in 2014.
So we had world-class scientists who were very happy to come and be advisors to this crown jewel of an organization with world-class research going on. It was really a plus to be involved in an advisory capacity, a scientific advisory capacity. But many folks that are really terrific at that role, not so interested in being involved in a board. So we'd already bifurcated that as I came on the board, and we created this separate entity, which was now called the Scientific Advisory Board.
Bob Kohut discusses the history of the environmental biology group at BTI and the leadership of Leonard Weinstein.
Having had this opportunity to work at BTI, it's a great place. Environmental biology was a great place. I feel that I've been really blessed having the opportunity to do the kinds of things I wanted to do as a kid, and knowing the people that I knew and was able to work with. I've been very fortunate.
Thank you, Mike Carroll, for putting together the edits, and maybe we can acknowledge Agnes for all your hard work here. Please, thank you. I just want to say two quick things. One is kind of an advertisement, if I can say that. There's going to be a table upstairs after you get done with lunch. There'll be a little sign that says "To Archives." So Jenna and I are going to be manning a table and looking for help with our historical materials. So we've been very fortunate to carve out some space. Thank you, Sylvia and Paul, for putting together some space where we're collecting photographs and books and old materials from our historic past. But we need some help in organizing and in particular identifying some of the folks in photographs. And so that's something I'm hoping that we can kind of collectively as a community work on. So that is what I wanted to say about the archives. But now I think it's time to pass the baton. And Paul Comet, who is the chair of the BTI board and familiar to most of us, is going to tell us, have a few comments. And I think maybe I'm passing my mic.